Well, there we are. Um, Never-ending numbers of children, innocent children, being discovered in graves on residential schools. A pandemic, a global pandemic, with millions of people dying, floods, fires. It just seems to go on and on. And in the middle of all that, the possibility now of another war for what exactly, I'm not really sure. Either way, it's just at some point you just shake your head and say, what is all this about? And in the middle of all that, here I am in my shack on a rainy day in February, and what will be the fourth and the final of the kind of a prelude to what I do. So I speak to students. I share books with them online and through Zoom. It's just so easy for me to bring a book up and let them see the illustrations. And with teachers, with parents, I speak of Indigenous rights and responsibilities, and I speak of values and traditions, and I speak, of course, on the subject of reading because it's a big focus of mine. There. That being said, regardless of the audience that I'm speaking to or the topic on which I'm speaking, I always start with four things, and I've been trying to outline those. The first thing I always do is a land recognition. Period. The second thing I do is I invite those children who should be here with us who aren't. I invite them to come and join us. The third thing that I do is I speak to mental health. Why? Because I have that platform for a brief moment and it's that important a topic. It's not the kind of thing that should be addressed on one day of the year. It should be talked about every day. Not unlike the situation with our children. And I've said it before, and if you haven't heard me say it, I've said that every newspaper in the country should be mandated to have an orange banner up in the top left-hand side, left because our hearts are on our left, and it's that meaningful just with the rising numbers. It should be there just as a constant reminder and recognition thereof. Okay. So today, this is the fourth thing. So if regardless of the age I speak to, I speak to those four things. This is the fourth. And if I've learned something through the years that I spent as a teacher and as administrator, is not to underestimate the capabilities and the understandings of students. So often I found myself speaking to them as though they were, and they are very aware, not just because of social media, but because we talk more openly about so many things, and these kids understand. So if I'm going to be guilty of anything, it's going to be to speak over and not under. Um, and this topic is one that really has troubled me forever. Our school systems are built on the premonition of the belief that we all want to achieve and have the same things in our lives. And it's so wrong. We all seem to think that our goal in life is to live there in Rosedale and drive a Mercedes or a Jaguar and to have, we dream of those things, and it's not the case. And if you'll allow me, because I'm a storyteller, one quick story. I was invited to Old Crow in the Yukon, the only community above the Arctic Circle in the Yukon. And when I landed there, it was minus 40, 47 or 46, and it was supposed to feel like minus 58, and it was cold. And Old Crow is 230 people, very few roads or no roads at all, and very few vehicles, almost none. And I stood there in the cold, rocking back and forth when a snowmobile pulled up to me, and some guy got off the snowmobile and said, "Hey, are you the author?" Well, he first, by the way, I should say, he took off his toque. He was well dressed. Are you the author? Well, I looked from side to side. I mean, there's nobody for 5,000 miles. What do you think? And then he kind of chuckled. He said, "Hey, I'm Danny. I'm Gwichin." I said, "Danny, I'm David. I'm of Ojibwe and Osage descent." And he said, yeah. Well, the admin asked me to bring you a snowmobile, and so I did. It's the green one that you see there. And I said, "Danny, do I need anything?" And he said, "Well, no, not really. It doesn't work. It's broken." And I said, "It doesn't work?" "No." And I said, "Well, how'd you get it here?" And he said, "We've got a truck in the village, and I brought it in a truck." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because the admin asked me to bring you one. That's all I could find." I said, "Okay. Do you have a plan B?" And he said, "Yeah, I could go get that truck." And I said, "How quickly? Because, Danny, I swear to you, I'm going to die." And he said, "Here I go." And he was back within 5 minutes. And we were going to chucking down the street. And I said, "Hey, Danny, you married, a family, always lived here?" "Yeah, I always lived here, married, and I'm divorced." And I said, "Well, that must be hard in a small town like this." And he said, "Well, why did you say that?" I said, "Well, I mean, wouldn't you always be in each other's faces?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Danny, what do you mean, what do I mean? Where does your ex-wife live?" And he said, "Can you see that blue house up at the corner there? That's her house." And I said, "Where do you live?" And he said, "I live right here in this white one." I said, "Well, that's what I mean, Danny. You'd always been." And I said, "Forget it. Have you ever had another relationship?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, I really hit it off with a nurse who came up 2 years ago. She was just perfect. And she went and rented us an apartment in Toronto." And I said, "But you're still here?" And he said, "Yeah, I changed my mind." I said, "Oh, she wasn't the girl for you." He said, "Oh no, she was everything I wanted in a friend and a partner." But no, it was Toronto. Like, who'd want to live in Toronto? Oh, the following month, I found myself speaking to senior administrators in Mississauga. And I said, before we do anything else, I've got a story that I want to share with you. If you think that all of your students want to live in Rosedale and drive a Mercedes Benz and have a house with 5 garages, I've got a friend. His name is Danny. He'd prefer live in what most would refer to as poverty, in freezing weather with no this and no that, than to live in those conditions. You've got to understand, not everybody wants what you think they want. So what I say to kids always on this fourth point is this one: students, listen to me. You not only have the right, but you have the responsibility to fall in love with you. There's only one of you, and there will only ever be one of you. You've got to go home tonight, look in the mirror and say, I love you. You have to learn how to do that, because unless you can learn to fall in love with you, you'll never fall in love with anyone else. And you are so, so unique. Never again will there be another you. You have to fall in love with you. And in so doing, you have to look in there. And kids, we teach you in our school systems to look up there. If you're going to succeed in life, you'll look like her. And a young woman might say, but I'm nothing like her. I know, but that's the goal in life. We have ways to make you look more like her and dress like him. But I can't afford that. I know. That's why you go to school and you get a good job so you can afford those clothes. And that Mercedes or BMW, that's your goal. And that house with 4-car garage, they tell you to look up there, and that's not where you should be looking. Students, I'm here to tell you that where you should be looking is in there. You should look inside of who you are and be honest with yourself. What gift did Creator give you? Figure that out and build your whole life around who you are, what gift you've been given. And I promise you this: you might not get rich, but you might. You might not get famous, but you might. But I promise you this: you will feel good and you will have done right. So that was that's my fourth message. And my fourth message is pretty straightforward. It's one that all students should hear. It's one that all educators should share. We should, as a community, make sure that we're aiming that way, striving to get our kids in that position. It's this one: you are unique, you are special, and you have to learn to build your life around your gift. Teachers, we have to learn to teach children around their gift, and our students around who they are, and not rather around a curriculum that will allow them to achieve those consumer goods that we think everybody wants. Not everybody wants them. I know. I met a guy called Danny, or did I tell you about him?